This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening, everyone. It's February 11th. It's the regular meeting of the RTM Public Works Committee. And I was going to welcome our new member, but she is not on yet. So I will go off. I will go to next, which is I want to thank Cecil for being our organizer. And Frank, are you available to take the minutes? Frank Edelman?
Sorry, I'm just working on the interface. Yeah, if you need me to, I can. I don't have pen and paper, but I'll go find it.
Okay. At our last meeting, we agreed to do this alphabetically. So our next meeting is March 8th, and Terry would be the next person to take the minutes. If you're not,
I didn't realize I had been tagged for it already, so my apologies. Yeah.
You actually, Frank, you volunteered.
I volunteered. That's right, I did.
Yeah.
So count me in. Yeah, got it. Okay.
Which was great because you were actually you were first, so it worked out well. So anyhow, it's Terry is up next, and I'm sure he'll watch this video, and I'm sure he'll be excited to do that. So next up is to approve the minutes of November 23rd, 2020. Do I have a motion? Okay, Rolf, second. Any additions, deletions, corrections? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor? Just raise your hand. Okay. Any noes? Abstentions? Okay, seeing none, we'll call it unanimous. So I can't see everybody. My screen shows 6 people. So if you are, if you're not a yes on something, you have to say something, okay? Because I can't see your hand, okay? Okay, next order of business, I would like to welcome Ed Gentile, the Director of Public Works for Department of Public Works. He's going to give an update on projects in town, including the sidewalk and the street paving. This work reduces the risk to pedestrians and to motorists, which reduces the town's liability. And I'm referring, you might have seen on the quarterly report, the last item referred to legal action and work that Ed has to do. And this is something that cuts down on it when there are no slips and falls, etc. I have also asked for updates on the 3 developments in town and Public Works' involvement with that. Update on the Darien train station and the shelter collaboration with the DOT. I think we're all interested in where the Norton and West Avenue intersection project is coming along. And I also want to thank committee members that have sent in questions. I forward those to Ed. He will answer those at the end of this. And then if anyone has any general questions, we'll take those. But we're also going to be covering the budget. And so some of your questions might be covered in the budget. So you might want to wait until after that presentation is finished. And then if you have the questions, then you can ask it. That way we'll save some time. Okay? So thank you again, Ed, for taking time out of your day to join us at 7:30 at night. It's really greatly appreciated. We always learn so much from you, and it's a big thank you from us. Okay, so here's Ed.
Well, you're very welcome. Just you guys can hear me okay, right? I didn't mess this up again. All right.
We can hear you.
Well, thank you for inviting me. This is the one chance that I get during the year to talk about just about everything we touch and do here at the Department of Public Works. And I think you guys are getting a better flavor. Over the last year, you guys were the first group that had asked for the quarterly report. So you're getting a good flavor of throughout the whole year how some of our tasks are as repetitive as they are, come during certain times of the year, and how we address certain projects and so on. So I'm glad I'm able to give those. I'm glad you asked for them, and hopefully they're helpful. And just please understand that if there's anything that you ever see in those reports and you have any questions, please feel free to give me a call, send me an email, contact Monica, and you want to go through that avenue, that's fine too. I'm more than happy to provide you folks information whenever you'd like it. So let me jump right into, Monica, I'm going to jump right into your email, if that's okay. And I'll work my way down, and you guys stop me if you'd like any other additional information, or you want to sidetrack to something else. The 3 real estate developments that we're working on, the federal property, the Palmer's property, and Corbin Drive, I'm sorry, with David Geneviese's project, all in different phases right now. I'll talk about federal. They're the furthest ahead. Updates now are they're about 6 weeks behind schedule, which isn't bad for how far they were behind schedule about a year ago. So they're moving along. Our participation in that is generally oversight on any of the work that's been done or is done out in the street with regards to storm drainage, sanitary sewer, water disconnects, underground electric. So we issue all the permits, and what we did at the very beginning of this job was set up a map that showed all of the permits that they were going to need. So this has actually made it very easy. I don't actually have to be in the office to get these things issued. Our permit engineering aide, Anthony Taccone, does that now. We sat with him and showed it all. So basically, I'm looking at a big site map, and I've highlighted everything that needs a permit, set specific bonds based on the scope of that work to be done. So it seems to be working out well. So though we do spend a lot of time when they get the permits, we do go out and do inspections on certain things. They do have a third-party inspector doing some of that work for us also. So we're getting everything out in the town right away, inspected properly to make sure it meets all of our standards and the specifications that were approved according to their plans. Federal is the very first project that we're doing this with. Palmer's, we set it up the same way, but unfortunately, the beginning of the COVID pandemic, the Palmer's ran into a slight problem with financing and had put the project on hold. We are waiting for it to start up again. It does look like late spring, maybe summertime, that will happen from what we understand. And we're hopeful for that too. We're looking forward to getting that project done along with federal at the same time, which kind of group that whole block together would improve that area and the heights immensely. The third project, the Corbin Drive, David Geneviese's project, they are ongoing in phase 1. The big piece was relocating a storm drain in that back parking lot behind 1020 Boston Post Road. They have completed that. They are moving ahead now with demolition with a couple of the properties. We're set up a meeting in a week and a half with David and his project managers to go over the permits that they'll need in the right of way, set up that map again, identify bonding, and so that they have a copy of the map, I have a copy of the map, and we can actually move their project along smoothly. And I see that as an advantage. So that pretty much, that sets up our permitting, that sets up our inspections. All of them have third-party inspectors that are doing some of the sanitary and storm. We do some of the sidewalk inspections. So we're making sure that any work in the town right away, like I said before, is being inspected and being built according to the town standards. That pretty much covers the 3 developments. Any questions?
Ed, real quick, when you say behind, for Corbin that they relocated that storm drain, is that kind of that open ditch? Has that been covered? They covered that over? Is that right?
Yeah, they got permission from the state DOT because that's a drainage associated with them, and they did. They took the open trench and now made it a closed pipe and connected it from the Boston Post Road down to Old Kings Highway South. Okay,
and then does that outlet into, was that open ditch, which is now a pipe, did that go into a pipe?
Imagine that trench no longer there now. It's actually, everything is piped from the Post Road to Old Kings Highway South, where it used to be an open ditch.
Got it. But I guess what I'm saying is that the new segment of pipe, does that lead into a pipe downstream from that?
It does. It does. Like the trench did before, same connection, same location.
Got it. And that eventually gets out to the sound somehow?
It gets out to the Goodwise River under I-95, and you can follow it down to Orms Pond and then out to Long Island Sound.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
And I just have one question.
Sure.
With these projects going on, do you think you have enough personnel to keep up with them?
You know, we looked at that at the beginning, and that is why we strongly suggested, and they took our suggestion to heart, to hire a third party, which they pay for, but we control their contract and scope of work. So basically, they're kind of working for us, being paid by the developer. So to answer your question, yes, I think we have adequate manpower because of the way we set up the inspection services. Yes, sir.
Do we know when they really plan to start breaking ground on Corbin and start demolishing and building? I mean, that has been going on for years now.
I don't have that information, and I got to say that some of the developers do keep that close to the vest, but we do get bits and pieces. So as I said, they are going to be coming in soon in the next couple of weeks for some demo permits on the properties on Corbin. I do believe they're on the east side of Corbin, if you will, maybe the gas station and that piece. That is going to start relatively soon, from what I understand. Okay. Other questions? I'll go to the update on the Darien train station, including the shelters and the collaboration with the DOT. We just had a meeting to approve and go through comments on the 60% design drawings. At the same time, the first selected and myself met virtually with the DOT design team to continue to ask for extending the canopies. The DOT is not in favor of doing that, so what we had went to as a next option was to propose shelters off the back sides of these platforms that they're going to replace. Kind of like the one that is over at the Norton Heights train station in the south parking lot. There's a 30 by 10 shelter there. So we're proposing some of those on the new platform project, and the DOT is actually in favor of doing that. Part of the deal is that the town is going to put in some of the funds from the parking fund capital reserve, which does not impact the taxpayers. This is the reserve from the funds that we get from collecting fees at the train stations. So those funds will cover the cost of purchasing the shelters. The DOT is going to design the structures and install the structures. So what we're basically doing is buying the shelter, and they're going to actually put it in place for us as they do the platform work.
Ed, can I ask, why would they be against extending the canopies, especially on the side where people are waiting to go into New York all the time?
Frank, I wish I could give you an answer. It's if I told you, it probably has a little bit to do with money and a lot to do with the canopy being out there, extending that. They don't. I just don't think they agree with our approach to commuters and the services that they need on these platforms. Is the impression I'm getting. I'm trying to be as correct as I can when I say this.
But we know, I've commuted in, and I'm sure you've seen it at all hours of the day. That platform is packed with people, for most of the morning trains, right? So if it is raining or snowing or something, that platform gets wet, gets slippery, and those people get wet and are at risk. So this is the kind of thing where if we could do it ourselves, we would have done it a long time ago, right? But we can't do it ourselves because they control the station. So, how does this cost some ridiculous amount of money? This would be something that would be incredibly valuable for I think a lot of people in town, and I just can't see why we wouldn't offer. If they're truly not willing to do it for financial reasons, why wouldn't we just fund that?
Well, I don't think they're in support of them financially and philosophically, if you want to put it that way. They don't believe that the canopies are something that are needed there. The shelters were a the best compromise that we could come up with. We are going to put 3 of those shelters on the New York bound side to address the capacity issues that you speak of, and only 1 on the New Haven bound side. It was the compromise that we come up with to get this inside and included in the plans at a 60% phase. And
again, I just want to, I don't want to make the whole meeting about the canopies, but I really do want to push back and say, I think that's a really important, amenity. Amenity is not a strong enough word, but I feel really strongly that, you know, the more you do there, the safer. It's not just a convenience issue, it's a safety issue, because the parts that are covered by canopies don't get sleet and snow and ice. And again, and I'm sure those platforms are absolutely packed.
Understood.
So if there's any chance to push back and really, I mean, I think that's something that we should, you know, if we have to spend $1 million or more of town money to get that done, I think we should feel really comfortable advocating for that.
I think it's a little bit more than $1 million, Frank, but as I said, I don't think it's just the money with them. It's also where we sit with the design phase right now. And it's not like we haven't been pushing for this request, they've just been pushing it off. So as politically correct as I can be right now, I don't believe they're in favor of putting canopies regardless of how we want to fund them or include them in their project.
Can you give me some sense, if it's not $1 million, are you being cagey? Is it like really $100 million? I mean,
no, it's not that much. It's not that much. I don't want to throw a number out there and not have it. And I'm not at my desk right now to be able to pull it up to give it to you, or I'd be doing that right now as we speak.
But order of magnitude, I mean, you know, is it 1 million, 10 million, 100 million? It's not 100. So is it 10 million?
This project is $33 million right now. If I had to guess, it's between 1 and 10. And that's the best I could give you right now. That canopy that's out there right now, what they want to do, if you wanted to match it, the gauge steel that they're using, the type of roof it's done, and the material is very expensive to do what was done in front of that station before. And that's why it costs as much as it does. And that's why they're not in favor of doing it.
So it's
And have you met with the project architect and the dimensions that these shelters might work into the plan?
I've spoken with the architect. We've spoken with the DOT project manager. We reviewed the size of the one at Norton Heights. We also gave them some dimensions of the ones that we went and visited around some other train stations, and that we're going to put, they'll be 10 by 20. There'll be 3. What the size does is allow us to put them in between existing structures that are actually, whether it be lighting, catenary, or the overhead wire catenaries too, the larger ones. So we were able to actually get them to fit into the design with the platforms.
And those are on the platform?
I'm sorry?
Those are on the platform?
They will be recessed behind or offset behind the platforms. So we're not going to compromise the 10 feet. I think Jamie and myself both thought that was not safe, that wasn't practical, and they're going to offset them off the back side of that.
Great.
Okay. The next item is the Norton West intersection update. Well,
Ed, one second.
Sure.
So there seems to be a lot of interest in the train station. Do you know when there will be the next meeting, a public meeting on it that people can?
They are shooting for 90% completion in September. They are looking to put it out to bid November, December. They are looking to award January, February, issue a letter to proceed at that time, and then start the project in April of 2022 and complete it in 2024.
Okay, so public comment for things like adding the canopy, that time has come and gone?
It's past the public comment part. It's actually, we've asked them now to slow down their design to get these shelters included in it so that we don't have to do a separate project ourselves and get it done actually in a timely fashion. It just makes sense to get it done at the same time that they build those platforms out there.
Right. And the platforms are heated, right?
They're going to be heated FRP, which is the reinforced fiber plastic, basically.
All right. So thank you for the update, and I'm sure you'll keep us in the loop as time goes on.
Okay. Norton West Avenue intersection update. We just had a conversation with the DOT today. Our plans are first had to go through Westcog, and they are I'd say substantially complete. We're at 99%. There's a couple items with the right of way that we have to iron out. They are requiring that we file the easements and pay the property owners before they'll sign off on our right of way, and we're in the process of getting that done. Over the next 2 weeks, we'll have all the documents going forward. We contacted the DOT right of way section today. We're going to have a little quick meeting with them next week to make sure there's nothing else that we've missed. Obviously, that's a very sticky point with them. They want to make sure all of the right of way issues are legally set in stone, so that when we start the project, we don't have any problems with the residents out there. But after that, the final design is on its way to the DOT. We are shooting to get this started July 1st. This is one of the projects that once your final design is approved, you're approved to bid it, you get a successful bidder, and you award the contract, the DOT gives you the full money for your estimate. They give you the full amount of the construction estimate. So you don't have to submit invoices or anything like that. You get the money right up front, and you start to draw down out of it. You do have to produce a report every 3 months on how you spent the money, but this is one of the projects you don't have to front end the money from the town and then have it reimbursed from the DOT.
Great.
And if you're starting on July 1, when do you expect that'll wrap up?
Frank, that there is that there's always the lead item for traffic control poles that we hope to, before we start July 1st, maybe in June when we issue the contract, we'll get them ordered. There's usually a 12 to 14 week lead time on those. So other than maybe those items, we're kind of hopeful that we can finish this before school starts. July, August, maybe 2 months, the majority of it. It's not a lot of work, but it is a very busy intersection. So it's going to take a little bit of time. The traffic items are going to be the ones that are done last. So we're hopeful that by Thanksgiving, we should be completed with the project. The traffic items included. That's my hope. Okay.
Thank you.
Monica, I'm looking at D here on
So,
your list. Yeah, I'm
yes,
kind of hesitant to jump into that right away. I
Okay,
don't know how you feel.
okay,
You want to go through the budget? Maybe that'll eliminate some of the other questions.
that's
don't
what
know.
I was
You
thinking.
tell me what you want.
Yeah.
Whatever you like.
That's what I was thinking. Yep. So I don't want to change the agenda. So let's go to the next item, which is the swap shop.
Okay.
It was brought to my attention by another RTM member that there was some chatting on nextdoor.com, an online site regarding the swap shop. So I asked Ed to give us an update on what's going on.
Well, as always, and this has been going on, I think, since I've gotten here anyway. I can't speak to before that. Well, there are volunteers that work there. There are some volunteers that feel that it's their position to go and help some of the residents remove items from their vehicles and bring them to wherever they bring them. And some of the complaints that we've gotten is that some of these volunteers may be a little bit more aggressive than some of our residents would like. And that's completely understandable during this time or any other time, to be quite honest with you. So I did have a discussion with Dan Dolcetti about it. And we talked about how we could make it better. So what we've come up with is we are going to, and we have purchased or have ordered yellow vests that say Swap Shop Volunteer on them. This will indicate to the folks that are bringing things in that these are the folks that you want to ask for help from, and they are there to help you if you need it. The other item to go along with those vests is you are not to approach any of the vehicles if you're wearing one of those vests because you're working there, to remove anything from a car unless you're asked to. And I think that's something that Dan's going to have to start to enforce a little bit more. And I'm not saying it's really bad over there, but I can tell you that there are one or two volunteers that we do need to maybe bring back in line, bring them back into the fold, and get them to realize that, you know, what they're doing is bothering people, and they really do need to stop. So that's where I am with that situation. That's right.
And that was a recent conversation, right?
I'm sorry?
That was a recent conversation you had with the Sustainability Committee, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Hey Ed, what kind of training do these volunteers get, or they don't?
I can't speak to specifics. Some of the training that, and I say some of the conversations I've had with the kind of the leaders of the group that kind of pass on, there's more of safety, more of be aware of your environment, be aware of the cars that are there, because it does get very busy. I'm sure you folks are aware of that. I think these yellow vests are going to help in that situation. We do have some signage that I purchased. Some of the volunteers will be using that. It's a sign that they'll be standing out in front. That's actually quite big, like a stop sign that says lot is full, which means you need to move on. You can't pull in. And this is something that we're going to try out in the springtime when it gets a little bit warmer out there. Right now, the swap shop actually has been closed recently because of the snowstorms, because of the cold weather. They haven't opened up in the last couple of days, from what I understand. So, but that's the type of training that I provide with Dan and some of their leaders over there to pass on. But other than that, I don't know of any other training.
Yeah, Ed, I have had calls from a couple of constituents, and I mean, I share the concern about the traffic you just expressed. What my constituents have expressed to me is of the opposite concern, is that the volunteers are effectively front running on all the good stuff, that they are not only helping to unload, but then they are moving stuff directly into their vehicles, and it becomes a way for hoarders to hoard more effectively. Again, you know, I don't know how, you know, how widespread this concern is, but I've had more than one constituent raise it to me. So the yellow vests, I think, would be great for the traffic control as you described, but I think a little more guidance to volunteers. And again, I appreciate their volunteers and I appreciate their service, right? But a little more guidance to say, hey, if you're working a shift, you're not helping yourself.
I happen to agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think the part where if you're wearing that vest, you are not to be unloading the vehicles unless, Frank, you know, somebody had come up and asked for specific help because it's heavy or it's awkward or something like that. And that's something that they'll have to be self-enforcing. I think Dan's going to have to do a little bit more of that, and like you said, a little bit more conversation on being a little more forceful with that. Yes.
But the other side is, if you're wearing the yellow vest, don't load stuff into your own vehicle.
I'm going to agree with you on that because that's a bad optic. But I go back to the nice letter that Bob Steger left me when I first came here, and he spoke about the swap shop and what it's supposed to do for the town, okay, and what it is supposed to reduce MSW. And as we all know, that is the pride of joy of some of the volunteers that are over there, because it is a big help. The numbers that we do reduce is substantial, and we'd like to continue to do that. But yes, it is a bad optic to see someone that works there grab it, walk over to their car, put it in it, close the hatch, and then walk away. Yes, I agree with you, and that needs to be pushed a little harder. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate a little bit of what Frank said as well, and I've heard from a number of my constituents as well, the same thing, the aggressiveness, and actually a number of the, quote, volunteers really are dealers that are, to Frank's point, front running, taking the good stuff, arguing with one another. So yes, the town benefits by lowering the amount of tonnage, but by the same token, the optics are not very good, and to the point where people are not going to the swap shop to put things in there because they just don't want to deal with these people. So, and I also want to point out, there is a sign there that says no loitering, and a lot of these volunteers are taking up parking spaces so that people can't get in there. So, when the swap shop opened, I was all for it. I still think it's a great idea, but it has gone beyond what I think it was originally intended to be, and I think it needs a rethink in the way that it's operating. There were no volunteers in the original. If you look at the original plan here, there were no volunteers. It was supposed to be just, members of the community leaving, just like leave a penny, take a penny. That's what it was supposed to be, and it's morphed into something else, and I think it needs a rethink. Thanks.
Okay.
Anything else on the swap shop? No? Okay, so we'll move on to the budget. I hope everybody had a chance to look over the information I sent, and I hope you had a chance to watch the video where Kate and Ed was on it, presented to the Board of Selectmen the budget. So we're not going to go through line item by line item. It was pretty thoroughly discussed. I asked Ed to cover some major points, and I asked for questions from people. So the Board of Finance will receive the town budget and the Board of Ed budget on March 2nd, and they will vote on it on April 6th. Our committee will vote on the Public Works portion of the budget either at our April 8th meeting or our April 27th meeting. So in the meantime, I want to thank Mark Adeletta, who is on the the Finance and Budget RTM committee, for joining us tonight. And I'm asking him to explain to you something that we need one volunteer from our committee to agree to do. I will do it, but I need one other person. And Mark, can you take it from there?
Sure, Monica, thank you. And it's good to see everybody again. Nice to be here. Good to see you as well, Ed. What Monica's referring to is, I think it's been referred to over the years as the buddy system. And I don't know how many years ago this was, but those of you that have been involved in the budget process know that the real impact or input to the budget occurs really during this time period, while the Board of Selectmen, the administrator, the various incarnations and discussions and debate on the budget, and the items in the budget get presented and discussed and vetted. This is when there's the opportunity to make a difference. And so what was devised several years ago was the idea of pairing representatives from the subcommittees of the RTM with one or two members of the Board of Finance to interact and to share information so that there's an efficiency accomplished in covering the items with respect to the different departments, the different segments. And so F&B designates two people pretty much for all the major segments of the budget. It's not just departments. The Board of Ed is obviously a mammoth slice. And then two representatives from each of the subcommittees, including Public Works, and then two representatives from the Board of Finance that focus on a segment of the budget. And the idea is really to try to be more efficient and not to have it all compartmentalized, and also to try to reduce what used to happen, in my opinion, to a certain extent, which is the RTM, when, as I think, Monica, you just said, we'll review and vote on the budget in April. At that point, it's all pretty much set. And so to try to increase the interaction and the communication at this point. So that's it in a nutshell. It's been in effect a few years. I've put my hand up. I hopefully will get selected for Public Works out of F&B. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. I think, Monica, I don't know if there's much else you wanted me to add to that. And I would ask, from your perspective, I think the transition or the incorporation of this concept occurred in your tenure here. And hopefully, I know one of the intentions was to minimize the number of presentations you're having to do to a certain extent, because we're we're participating in the presentations that are going on with the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance. I don't think we watched the sessions, actually in the early sessions with the administrator's budget. And so I don't know if it's reduced your time having to present over and over at all, but that I know is one of the intentions, as well as communication.
No, Mark, it has. It's just been great. I think the administration, along with the RTM and their committee members and their chairman, have come up with a better mousetrap, if you will. They've made it pretty simple. They're trying to streamline this. They're trying to make trying to get the information out to you in a very efficient way. And you folks, as always, ask great questions, and I have no problem discussing it. But it's like you said, my first year here, I think for the budget, I went to 5 different meetings and presented the budget 5 different times. And though I was excited to be in the town of Darien, it was a lot. And it's you want to get the information out to you folks, and I think it's better now. It does help. Kate takes that budget now from me and kind of makes it her own. But we are asked to show up, and because there are questions that she doesn't know how to answer, or maybe not have the particular detail. It's kind of hard to know everything about the town that drills down to some of these details. But like I said, Mark, you guys made it easier, and it's getting better every year. And I think it shows in the way this budget turns out on a regular basis.
Thanks, Ed. So Monica, that's it.
So I'm going to ask people to think about it, and at the end of the meeting, before we adjourn, I'll ask if there's somebody that is interested in doing it. Okay. So now we will go through the budget, but this isn't our last meeting on the budget, so we're hitting some high points here. And I've listed a number of questions for Ed to cover. So instead of me saying them and you repeating them, I'm going to ask you just to go ahead with the questions, and then at the end, we'll take questions from our members that are here tonight. Sound good?
Yes. Okay. Yep. Perfect. I'll work right down your list.
Okay.
The first item was a full-time employee, James Blakeney, replacement. I don't know if you folks know or have heard, but just briefly, he passed away in December from complications to COVID. He was one of our DPW drivers, long-standing employee, almost 20 years here. So we are in the process right now of replacing him. We had one of our driver ones interview, and it has been promoted. So that leaves a vacancy in the driver one now. We're going to post that in a couple weeks, and we'll fill that position. We'll, of course, post it internally first. That is the union rules. And if no one is qualified there, we'll post it outside. I believe there's a couple gentlemen that are qualified. So
Ed, you froze. Ed, I will call you. Okay, I can't call Ed and get rid of the cat at the same time.
Perhaps the cat can practice law like in Texas.
Hi, you froze, huh? Oh, okay. 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 Bye. Okay. Simple fix. His computer died. So, he is plugging in, and can you hear me? You can hear me, right?
Yeah. We can hear you on the. Yeah.
Okay. So why don't we just take a minute? Does anyone have anything to say? You want to go get a drink of water? Go.
Intermission.
Do whatever.
Well, I'd like to ask a question about this whatever, joint effort with F&B for the upcoming budget. So what specifically do the volunteers from Public Works, how do they get involved? What do they do working with finance and budget and in relation to the budget, developing the budget?
Okay, so the concept is this originated with our RTM F&B committee. And the concept is to get all of the questions out before the Board of Finance votes. And to do that, they need to know what the questions are. So the idea would be there would be 2 people from the F&B, 2 people from Board of Finance, and 2 people from Public Works who would meet and first collect from our own committee any concerns that we have, and F&B would do the same, and Board of Finance, and we would share that information and try to get the answers to that satisfy whoever is asking. I think he's trying to get in and out. So what I don't know is, I don't know how many meetings there are. Our budget is relatively straightforward. It's, you know, I kind of was asking what kind of a commitment is this?
Monica, I can try to address that if you like, because it's not that big of a commitment, in that attending meetings isn't necessarily, you know, the end game. It's gathering those questions from the respective groups, consolidating them. What you find is that it's a lot of the same questions, and so you can consolidate instead of a list of, say, you know, the sum of 3 lists combined. When you combine them, you know, maybe it's 50% longer than just any one of the lists, and to get those communicated and you know, how they get delivered to a Board of Finance doesn't necessarily mean going and sitting in a meeting. That's one way to do it, but to reach out, the message can be delivered via the 2 representatives from the Board of Finance. It's however interactive, you know, the individuals need it or want it to be. Really, it's being in touch with your respective group, in this case, the Public Works Committee, subcommittee, and being able to convey and represent, this is what our group has as open questions after our 1 or 2 or 3 meetings we had and discussions with Ed. We still have these couple of items, and oh heck, let's say I'm the representative from Board of Finance, F&B. Yep, we have a couple of those same questions plus these 3. Let's pass them along, and maybe it doesn't even come up in a meeting, but gets addressed. The Board of Finance representatives may have the answers that just the F&B and Public Works didn't know. So it's intended to be somewhat fluid and not too structured. But at the end of the day, you know, if the message or the list or the question had to be delivered, we could always attend a Board of Finance meeting, and there's plenty of meetings during the budget season to attend. So then, if it's going to rise to the level of attending a meeting, not every department gets discussed at every meeting, so it's easy enough to just target the particular meeting where Public Works item is going to be discussed, and even this time slot, looking at the agenda or you know, reaching out to F&B, Board of Finance, to know when that you want to be on the agenda. So, long-winded way of saying it doesn't have to be that invasive as far as attending meetings. A lot of the information's on videos and watching other committees' meetings.
Okay, so we're collecting it from our committee and forwarding it.
Yeah, and consolidating. Is that back?
Hello.
Yeah, does that answer your question, Rolf? That's good? Good? Okay. All right. So Ed, you're back?
I'm back. Can you hear me?
We can. Good job getting
I apologize to you folks. I like I told Monica, there's a reason that I'm not allowed to use the home computer, because I don't plug it in. So.
Okay, well, we've all been there. That's for sure. Okay, so Ed is going to go through some of the questions that we sent to him, and then if there are any questions at the end, he'll answer them then. Okay?
let me just complete the full-time employee. We are in the process of filling his position at this time. And we'll continue this. It causes like a little domino effect. We'll continue to work our way through it until we are back to full staff again within a short time.
Okay.
The number 2 is increase in sidewalk and paving amounts. This is interesting because last year or the year before, I sat with Jamie and she had asked me to put together a 5-year program to get our sidewalks up to the standard, and I'm talking about throughout the town, up to a standard that we would deem respectable. So we did a very, very high level inspection, and we determined that we needed about $3.4 million to do all of that work over an extended period of time. And I decided that what I would do the first year, and I think that the idea was to bond this money as we go through the budget season every year to do this work. So I decided to ask for $500,000 last year. We're in the process of scheduling and doing that work and should have the majority of that money spent by July 1st to roll into the next year. We were held up a little bit by the DOT, things like permitting, winter actually kind of cut us off too, but we are going to pick it up. We did ask for $750,000 this year, and we'll do the same next year and the following year. So some of this money is going to be used to do some repairs in the downtown areas, your model block, brick repairs, tree removals. We're going to try to plant some new trees while we're down there. Some that aren't do not grow as large through the wires, where you end up butchering them and they become more of an eyesore than they do an attraction. So we're working on that too. But this money is to get our sidewalks both in the downtown area and along the close to the schools, which is part of that PAC report. Work near schools first, near the commuting areas, high traffic residential areas that use sidewalks. So that's what we have planned to do. And that's why the increase this year. I'm going to be able to do more money. We already have a contract with a contractor to do sidewalks. He's ready to get started as soon as the weather breaks. And we have some exciting work to do. The Tokenique area, the Middlesex area, Leroy West, West Avenue area. There's going to be quite a bit of work going on throughout town in sidewalks. Yes, sir.
Can I ask, one of the key elements of the PIAC report was looking at not only maintaining the existing portfolio of sidewalks, but filling in gaps and adding to that network. Can you say a little bit about where you're going to be adding new sidewalks and adding to that network to connect areas that might not currently be connected?
I'm going to tell you my secret, Frank. I took the low-hanging fruit on some of these because, as you know, putting in new sidewalks requires that the residents take on the responsibility of clearing them when it snows. And as you see, this year we're getting some snow, where last year we could barely 7 inches. So that's usually the battle that we have with new sidewalks. Now, I've already done through the PIAC report, I've already done the section on Tokenique Road from Old Kings Highway south under I-95 bridge. I've made that connection. There was a spot over in Locust Hill that from Delafield Island, I'm sorry, to Old Kings Highway south. We filled that section in. Edgerton has a piece that needs it from West Elm all the way down to West Avenue that we have the design plan. So that's my next project, if you will, that we're going to start working on. We're looking to set up a public meeting soon. We're working with the first selectman to do that. The only problem with public meetings right now, public information meetings, are we can't gather. So we're looking at maybe doing it virtually. I just don't think something as important as a sidewalk in a neighborhood, a virtual meeting is something people will respond positively to. That's just my gut. I could be completely wrong. There's another piece on Mansfield Avenue that people would like to see me do. It's a state road. I'm getting a little push from the DOT in trying to put one there, but we have a meeting in the springtime to go out and kind of walk. It's about 600 feet from Overbrook to Mansfield Place, I believe it is. So there's a section there. Those are the ones at the top of my head that I can think of that we're working on right now.
So that's all good to hear. I'm glad that there's some new stuff going in addition to maintaining and replacing the existing network, which is also important. Overall, I'm thrilled with the structure and the process that you've brought to this, Ed. So thank you again for your hard work there. I do have to raise something that's definitely not low-hanging fruit, which is that the north end of Hoyt Street, where it's been our most persistent, most consistent need, and perhaps the area of most danger. So again, I do want to put that back on your radar. I recognize it's not low-hanging fruit, but that's a critical area that we can't continue to overlook.
I understand completely.
Ed, I have a question on asphalt versus concrete. Is the life expectancy the same for both?
No, it's not. Concrete, we want to throw a number, us engineers will throw a number of maybe 50 years on it, 40, 50, depending on the material, depending on the pour, depending on the concrete, depending on the weather conditions and how much salt we throw on it. Asphalt, you'll get 25, 30 years out of it. There's difference of opinion on where to use them. Some folks, some residential folks don't want to see concrete sidewalks. They prefer that they be asphalt and kind of blend in with the neighborhood. Others want the concrete because it lasts longer, and that's what they've grown up with in their neighborhoods. I've heard tons of different approaches. My approach is that we do have right now a sidewalk policy that tells me where I put concrete and where I put asphalt, and that's what I've been following since I've got here. Bob Steger spent a lot of time putting it together and kind of narrowing down the areas that he foresaw as critical to where the concrete was important to be placed. So that's what I've been using since I've gotten here.
Okay.
The other half of that question, I think, was increase the paving amount. What you've seen over the last 2 years, I've done almost 5.5, almost, and 6 this past year miles. We generally try to do 4. We've done a lot of work with the utility companies and their contributions to paving where they've done main installation, main replacements, new services, wherever it may be. They've kind of, the gas company is just about done. They've done a little bit more work recently. Water company is going to continue to do their work 2 or 3 miles a year. They're going to come back. They have some other areas off of Leroy they're going to work on next year. But the increase that I'm asking for is getting us caught up on some of the roads that I wasn't able to do because I had to make some contributions toward the larger main roads that these utility companies would cut into, or if you say would install their new mains in. And the best way to describe it is we get a 20-year life cycle on these roadways. If for whatever reason the road's 20 years old, they want to put a gas main down that road, the gas company owns half of that roadway. I require them to repave half of the roadway to do their work. What I do is I pick up the other half and I pave the entire road. It's generally on my list to do anyway, or it's pretty close to being done. So it's a good practice to get the entire road done and move on and move out of it. The other piece is when they dig up a relatively new road, let's say it's only 5 years old or 4 years old, and for whatever reason they want to replace the main or put a new main in that roadway, they end up paving curb to curb. So imagine new road, 20-year road, anything in between that. I try to make sure when they're done doing their work that we finish the roadway curb to curb, and I'm not going back out there with a half paved road or going back there in about 5 or 10 years to do the other half. That doesn't make any sense. So right now I need the extra money to get me caught up over the last couple of years. And to be quite honest with you, I think after this year, it'll get me caught up. And then next year I can go back to the standard request of just around $1 million or just under $1 million to get work.
Sorry, can you remind us how much the larger request is this year?
I think it's $1.2 million.
1.2.
Thank you.
All right. Monica, you have to help me with this one a little bit. I didn't know what you were targeting. Revenue reduction in waste tipping fees and permit sales.
In the revenue, yeah.
Because I don't have I don't have the revenue section of the budget.
Okay. You know what, you spoke to it at the meeting, but these were two numbers that kind of jumped out. So there's a drop in the disposal permits and there's a drop in the tipping fee revenues. And could you explain why that is?
All right, let's say the permit sales it's driven by when we sell the permits and what COVID did to our sale and how we had to actually push it over into a fiscal year, a new fiscal year, and what happened with the revenue numbers for this year, and that's why you see the big jump. But the reduction in waste tipping, we're seeing a trend right now with some of our haulers that they are taking their waste to Bridgeport directly. And what's also happening is last year or this year, you'll see a uptick in our tipping fees because of the increase in garbage that we're taking in. So that revenue was adjusted to show the impact of COVID. So you're going to see a reduction next year, or a back to norm, if you will, with maybe a slight reduction because of our fees getting higher, and in the trip, they'd rather take it to Bridgeport to save the money. The cost is so much cheaper for them to do that. That's the reason for that.
Okay.
The reduction in the permit sales for FY20, we did not sell RDA stickers between April and July. Town hall was closed. We didn't want to put anyone at risk in making contact with us, and we didn't have the personnel to do it online. Basically, our office was being run by Darren and myself and one secretary 1 day a week, basically what we had until June, and when we started to ramp back up. So we extended the permits from 20 into fiscal year 21, where it allowed you to get into the dump without having a new permit, knowing that we were going to sell them from July to October 1st. And that's what we did. So the revenue actually jumped a fiscal year. And that's why you see that, I think it's like $330,000, maybe the number, if I recall, for 2020 on fiscal 21. And next year's budget, the revenues are back down to its norm, or back down to its average at, I think, 280,000. I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I think those are the numbers I recall.
Okay. You also said something, Ed, about, which I actually kind of didn't follow, in that people aren't buying. Do that many people buy a second or third permit?
We used to be quite a few of them buying the third ones. Yes, or actually, and seniors buying a second one. That costs the money. But we saw a reduction this year in the number of permits that we sold in the time frame we normally sell it, where the renewals come up there. You know, you have to have a new sticker by July 1st. A lot of people come in before that date. A lot of, some come after that date. So we basically split the revenues over 2 fiscal year periods. But yeah, we did see recently, looking at the numbers, we did see a percentage decrease in the number of RDA stickers. And you know what? That may catch up before the end of the year.
Is the second permit less expensive, or is it the same price?
It depends on the haulers. If you have a hauler, it's $40. No hauler, it's $20. You get a second one for $40. If you're a senior, you get your first one free. The second one is $40.
Okay. I'm just trying to figure this out. So
Yeah.
why would you get 2 permits? Because you want to put the sticker on 2 different vehicles?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
I see a lot of nodding, so I'm assuming these folks have double stickers on their cars. Yes.
Okay. So that means that if my husband got a permit and put it on his car, then he wouldn't need to get the compost and put it in my car. That's what we're gonna do.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay. Okay, sorry.
No problem. If there's no other questions on that, well, let's go to an explanation on sewer payments to the city of Stanford, one of my near and dear topics, and how reduction in I&I will help the town move from a high percentage of over 15, close to 16% of the WPCA in Stanford's budget to 12, and maybe even in the future below 12, to 11, I think Monica wrote here. So I think most of you know we pay the city of Stanford to process our sewage, and we pay a percentage based on the amount of flow we sent them in comparison to the overall flow through the treatment plant. And right now, we are at we were at 15.75. We are down below 14 right now for this year. Our hope is with our I&I program that we're doing, and I&I being inflow and infiltration of stormwater into your sanitary sewer system, basically putting water into the sanitary sewer that does not need to be treated. We're going to go through this I&I program and hopefully implement some capital improvements that eliminate that. So with that reduction, our flows reduce, our percentage reduces, and our payments to the city of Stanford then reduce. So that's our goal. That's what this the I&I project is proposed. It's going to take years. It's not going to be 1 year, 2 years. It's going to be 3, 5, 6, 7 years to get through the whole system. There's 81 miles of sewer in the town of Darien, and we're going to take a bite out of it. This year we're looking at close to 8 or 9 miles of the high impacted areas we know we have problems. So we're looking at the low hanging fruit again to make sure that we get the bang for our buck right out of the gate. So that's where we are with our sewer payments, and the hope that we make a reduction to them over the next couple of years. And I'm not going to say it will or it won't reduce the rates, but I would hope that the impact to them would show at that end of the spectrum also, where the fees are steady or even maybe held tight.
Ed, can you describe what that low-hanging fruit is in the I&I area? Like, is it a particular geographic part of town, or is it a particular type of flow?
It is. It's residential. We find residential areas, Frank, that are in swampy areas or close to rivers or have river crossings with older pipe tend to allow for the groundwater as it comes to enter into the pipes, enter into the manholes. So a low-hanging fruit, we took the Birch Road area. We took the Brookside area. We did Mechanic Street by Goodwise River Shopping Center. That river overflows all the time. So those structures are being impacted the most. And we found some interesting things in our manholes, in our pipes. So we're going back now in a couple weeks, and we're going to target them some more. We got some other areas to look at too. And by mid to the end of this year, come up with a capital improvement program to start implementing some improvements.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does anyone else have questions for Ed on the sewer budget? Rolf?
Yes, we voted last year on a capital expenditure for the sewer. What was it? I think it's 2.4 million altogether.
Yes.
And, part of that was to conduct the analysis of the system. And then the other part was to capitalize for improvements. So I'm assuming that you're moving forward with those funds for the near future, but that there will be other projects as you learn more that you'd have to come back again with other capital expenditures to continue on with other improvements. Did I say that correctly?
You did. You want to call this phase 1, and then there'll be a phase 2, and there'll be another bonding request to cover the design and inspection and so on, and the capital improvements. And I'm gonna reach out there and say it'll probably be a phase 3. And by that time, we hope to have grabbed a very, very high percentage of the sewer system that is causing us the biggest problems with I&I. That answers your question. Okay. Anything else?
Anything else on the sewer? Okay.
Right. You asked about the plow truck replacement schedule. I was required to give a 20-year outlook on vehicles, and I see Frank smiling. So I put one together.
Why stop at 20, Ed? You can go for 100. Come on. You get the flying car.
This maybe we could stop the snow from coming down. That would be even better for me. So I did, and we put one out, and we have. I'm sorry, just give me 1 second. We have, when we get to 2025, we would have replaced all of our big plow trucks, and we have 7 of those. So we're targeting one for this year. I'm sorry, for next year, and then one in 2023, one in 2025. So that was my plan when I came in here, is to get them, and we're getting about 13, 14, 15 years out of the ones we had. They should last a little bit longer. The wash bay has been a big plus with these trucks. We're getting the salt away from the mechanisms that tend to rot and cause us the biggest problems with replacements and repairs. So we're hopeful with the new trucks will last a little bit longer. And these old trucks I plan on replacing them, like I said, a year from now, 2023, 2025.
Hey, Ed.
Yes.
How did the number 7 come to be as far as the number of trucks? Why is there not more? Why is there not less?
I can't give you an answer like I know the definite answer, but I'll tell you what I think Bob decided to do. We have some major routes where larger trucks are needed. We have some smaller routes where the large trucks just cannot go and should not go into neighborhoods, tight turns, tighter roadways, and so on. So I think he balanced those two in selecting, the number of vehicles that he would have in certain categories. So you could tell by looking at our routes which ones have the big ones, which ones have the smaller trucks. But I think that was his guide when he decided to have 7 of that, and I have 7 more low boys that I have, the 550s. Those handle the neighborhoods.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any questions on that one? All right, I think Monica, the last one you have here is the snow blower with picture and brochure. I'm assuming that's the one I showed you?
Yep.
Okay.
But Ed, go back to the age of the trucks that are being replaced. How old are the 2 that we're replacing right now?
One's 15, the next one will be 13, and the next one after that will be 14.
Okay.
So they're older trucks. They didn't get the cleaning necessary, so we're struggling with those now, with the hopes that we will get a longer life with some of the process that we use now to clean them, and the wash bay helping out with that process at the end of every storm.
Okay.
I can speak to the snowblower equipment. We have, of course, have to maintain all of the parking lots, the commuter lots, the platforms, the sidewalks around the commuter lots, and there are some sidewalks in town that are abutting town property that we have to do also. Gentlemen that do this work, we generally use snow blowers to do it. They're quite large. You kind of think they would be able to handle what we do out there, but we do have quite a bit of sidewalks that we have to clean at the end of every storm. We used to have what we would call the Pope Mobile. It was a motorized snow blower with a enclosure that looked basically like the Pope Mobile, and it ran on 3 wheels, and we used it to help clear the sidewalks in larger storms because it took a big cut, 4-foot wide cut as it went down the sidewalks. It was very, very beneficial to have it. We lost that piece of equipment last year, and I've been looking at replacing it. We came up with some equipment that would fit our needs. It actually has dual augers, a thrower. On the back, it has a sanding mechanism you can put on. During the summer, you can put on grass cutting equipment and hauling equipment on the back. And it's about, I think it was $90,000. And that item is going to be paid for out of the parking fund to be used for the parking lots, the sidewalks, and the areas around the town parking facilities. I think that covers the snow blower one. You have any questions on that?
Do you have a picture? I can't see you, Ed. Do you have the brochure? Can you show people what it looks like? I don't know if I can't, you're not on my screen, so I don't know if other people can see it.
Okay. He's looking for a paper.
Oh,
Let's
I
see.
did ask. I believe that it's heated too. I'm hoping it's heated, but I don't know about radio.
Okay. This is it right there.
So it's not the wood chipper, you guys, but
No. You guys see that?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay. That's going to help us immensely. I will tell you, the platform guys are the first ones in on the storms because we treat those platforms so no one slips and falls either off of them, on them, or anywhere around them. We have to deal with lawsuits when that does happen. But the other piece is these gentlemen are usually the last ones to go home. So I've been monitoring their work, and I'll give you an example. We wrapped up that big storm after 40 hours of snow plowing or whatever. Normally all the guys went home at 10 o'clock that night. These platform guys stayed till about 2:30 wrapping up the work out in town. And it's tough work to begin with. You're shoveling, you're snow blowing. I think this piece of equipment is warranted. I think it's needed. I think it's going to cut down on my overtime. But just to say again, the purchase of this is going to come out of the parking fund, not the general fund. And the parking fund is funded through permit fees, parking ticket fees, and so on, as you folks are aware.
so those were all the questions that we had in advance, or that I wanted to ask. Are there any questions right now that you have, committee members? Does anyone wish to speak?
Yeah, I have a question. It's regards to the litigation that was at the end of the report. Are there any litigations currently going on?
Yes, there are. When we talk about litigations here in town, it could be anything. You folks are aware of the lawsuit with the sanitary sewer part, but that was a big one. The ones I normally deal with on a regular basis, and it's 2 or 3, maybe 4 a year, are slip and falls, trip and falls, sidewalks, ice. We had a gentleman take a spill on his bicycle on Hollow Tree Ridge Road. All of these come down to, they start as claims, they turn into some type of lawsuit, which turns into me having to deal with FOI requests, interrogatories that follow as we go through the lawsuit process, depositions that follow after that. Now, I've been fortunate here in town. I've been deposed 3 times since I've been here, and I've been here 7 years, but I've probably dealt with about 10 to 12 lawsuits that had to do with trips and falls, and the majority of them are settled somehow. They don't tell me the particulars, and to be honest with you, I don't need to know that, but it does save me a little time on going to court. I haven't had to go to court yet. So that's the lawsuit preparation that you saw at the end of the quarterly report. It does take a lot of time. It does take me those FOI requests takes me usually at least a day or 2 to dig through our Q alerts, work order systems, go out and inspect the sites, take photos, produce timesheets, things like that. That's all incorporated into these interrogatories or those FOI requests, depending on which stage of the lawsuit and claim that I'm dealing with. So it should be mentioned. It does take a lot of time, and to be honest with you, it impacts the budget for the town. So it's an important piece of my job that I do need to prepare for properly and address properly.
Now, after any sort of litigation, are there things that are put into place to make sure whatever happened doesn't happen again, as far as, you know, someone slipping and falling, or is it just one of those things you really can't control?
Well, I'll give you a broad example. We had something that happened at one of the train stations. One of the signposts for a facility other than the town of Darien or Metro North had a sign. It had fallen down. A piece of it was still sticking up in the air. Someone tripped over it and fell. And through that process, Metro North, town of Darien, the other transit companies were all sued. So what we did as soon as we found out, we of course went right out there. We pulled that piece of metal out of the ground. We capped the ground. We moved on. What I did now to move ahead and make it to be more proactive, if you will, I have our guys walking around now and inspecting everything, not just our areas. That's, you know, because as they say, they go for the deep pockets. The town of Darien seems to be the one that they like to throw in the top of the list when they're listing them. Slips and falls, ice, trips for on sidewalks, raised panels are an issue, roots are an issue from trees. So that's why we're targeting a lot of them, the downtown areas at the very beginning of my sidewalk program. I need to make improvements in those areas. It's not safe. We've been very fortunate in some things, but yes, I've been trying to be more proactive in some of the things that have come and hit my desk as a reason for someone filing a claim.
Frank?
Yeah, two quick questions. Do you first have a sense, again, vague is okay, of whether the among the lawsuits that you're talking about in your time here, so over the dozen or so you've seen, is it mostly Darien residents or mostly non-residents, or is it kind of a more or less balanced mix who are bringing allegations?
It's a mix. It's a mix, and I say that because a lot of the issues that happen, and they do happen at the stations a lot, more often than not there, are people, some of the people are commuting in to the town of Darien to work, or some live outside and park and get on the train there in Darien. So I'm seeing a mix. Maybe if I said 50-50, I think I'd be pretty close.
Okay, thanks. And then separately, you mentioned a larger sewer lawsuit. I guess I'm not familiar with that. If that was in the documentation, I apologize. I didn't have a chance to look at all of it. If I should go back and read it, that you can just direct me there, or can you? If not, can you give just a little background on that?
We recently had a lawsuit put forward by the Save the Sound folks that we did not meet the Clean Water Act with our sanitary sewer system here in town. It took us a year to negotiate a consent decree. That consent decree now requires me to do certain things at a certain time. Requires me to do certain inspections at a certain time. All of this was negotiated, like I said, over a 1-year period, and they just finished the filing and just made it a completed document December 28th. So that now the clock starts ticking for me to do certain things every year.
Thank you.
And if you look at when you look at the sewer budget, you'll see that under admin, there were significant fees incurred. It was almost $112,000 in law fees this year, or last year, and $31,000 in this year. But the work that Ed is doing is going to reduce the II, which caused the flooding, which caused the lawsuit to start. So when you ask what we can do, he is doing something to solve that problem right now. And Ed, you want to explain that the work that you're doing is actually work that you had been planning on doing?
Yeah, it was already in the pipeline to start doing this process. I had started even before we had the major break on the Boston Post Road up by Papa Joe's. I had already put in process to put out an RFP. I had written the RFP. We're putting it out on the street to get consultants to give us their qualifications and select one of them to come and start doing the I&I study for us. So it was unfortunate, you know, that it happened. It's unfortunate that the Save the Sound folks decided that they would venture into Darien and call us on the issue. So I'm looking forward to reducing the I&I. I'm looking forward to reducing our costs to the city of Stanford. I'm looking forward to reducing our budget. I'm going to look on the positive side of this and just go after the money right now and see if we can save some of the user fee folks some money on that. That's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Any other questions for Ed? Okay. Ed, so thank you so much for joining us. Again, thank you for extending your workday. It's really appreciated. And I'm glad we were able to kind of cover a lot of information in one meeting. And hopefully this buddy system with the Board of Finance and F&B will allow us to get any questions to you without you having to come back to a full-fledged meeting. So thanks for joining us.
Okay.
Next on the agenda is other business, and the other business would be, do I have anybody that's interested in doing the Board of Finance liaison job with me? Rolf? Anyone?
If there's no one else who's willing, then, you know, I'll sign on with you, Monica. But do I still have to take notes in the meetings?
We'll work that out. We'll work that out.
So Monica, I'll volunteer and then probably forget I volunteered to cover Rolf's turn as secretary or as clerk if he's willing to take on that extra responsibility. Thank you, Rolf.
He's not up for a while, so we have Terry is next, and then Eric. So thank you, Frank, for taking them tonight. So and thanks, Mark, for joining us and for explaining that very succinctly and much better than I would have done. So if we have nothing else to discuss, do we have anything else anybody else wants to say? Okay.
So going forward with the budget process in our next meeting, which I'm not sure, I can't remember off the top of my head when it's scheduled for.
It's March 8th.
Okay, so will we have an agenda at that time to start to go through some specifics in the budget as a committee?
We could.
Okay.
We could. I was hoping that a lot of our questions would be answered tonight.
Okay.
Yeah. So I didn't want to have a vote on the budget, not because I trust the committee to be informed and to read all of the information. And our budget doesn't change that much. There aren't that many adjustments once it goes to the Board of Selectmen, but there could be. The full-time employee thing is definitely a little bit in flux. But I personally, I'm pretty good. I feel like all of my questions have been answered. So I think if you go through, I think if you watch the video when Kate presents it to the Board of Selectmen, she goes through item by item. And I think for us to go through item by item is somewhat redundant. So what I would propose is that if anybody has any questions, get them to me. And obviously, if the same, more than one person has the same question, then that really, is something to focus on. But I anticipate that we will be collecting people's comments and questions and sharing them with F&B and the Board of Finance. and that's where the next phase will get hammered out. Does that make sense to everyone? Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. What I was going to add is that usually I'll probably be called upon, or F&B will probably take this up. We've already had one meeting where we touched on Public Works, but I'm happy to alert you and the committee when we're going to discuss it at F&B, so that you don't have to sit through all the meetings or even the entirety of that meeting, and consolidate any comments that come out of that and forward them in the whole spirit of the buddy system.
Perfect. Okay, so that's what we'll do. So first, you can do your own homework. And when F&B is meeting and discussing Public Works, Mark will let us know and we can participate in that meeting. And then our following meeting will be, if I'm not sure that we'll have a March meeting, I have to wait, you know, let me just say that I call a meeting when we are assigned something from rules, and obviously until there's a rules meeting, I can't make that determination, or if it's this time of year where it's budget work. So we have right now a March 8th meeting, an April 8th meeting, and an April 27th meeting. And one of those we will be voting on the budget. I anticipate that's either the 8th or the 27th. And I anticipate that we might not have a March 8th meeting if there's nothing given to us from rules. So does that answer everyone's questions? Okay. Sound good, Frank? Make
Very good.
sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And always, you know, really, I think we have a fantastic committee. And if you have any questions, you know, sometimes I get lonely. Just shoot a question to me. You know, anything, or your thoughts, or whatever. You know what I'm saying. Okay? Okay. So if there's nothing else to discuss, is there? No? Okay. Then can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second, Frank? Okay. All in favor? All right.
Aye.
All right. Have a great evening, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Monica.
everyone.
Bye.